I'm doing this video, which is very different than the videos that I normally do. I want to share things that I haven't shared before, some realizations I had while traveling solo in Europe this summer, and healing from a breakup with the person I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. Healing is a process, and you need to absolutely go through the bullseye for you to heal. There's no other way. I've shared this in other videos. You can go and watch them. But a lot of us try to distract ourselves after a breakup or when we have difficult emotions. And we convince ourselves that we're fine. But in the long run, that does not serve us because the same issue will come up in a different kind of relationship. And I don't know for you, but for me, I believe that karma are our lessons that we have to learn on this earth. We decided what lessons to learn, and we're here to learn those lessons. If we don't learn these lessons with that particular situation or person, that will show up again and again until we learn. I broke up with this person twice. The first time I learned few lessons, but we got back together. And I thought that was the lessons that I needed to learn. And it's just meant to be. I always believe in what it's meant to be will be. There's no forcing. I try to my life detached as much as possible. I cannot say that I'm great at everything that I do. However, I knew the second time around there are different lessons I needed to learn. And I knew I had to be there for the second time around. And I knew things will not last. It was just intuition. My intuition is extremely strong. I've been always listening to my intuition, but when it came to love and relationship, I doubted it. I convinced myself otherwise. And a friend of mine called me on that, and so I'm conscious of it. When I got back with this person the second time, I knew the lesson I had to learn. And I knew once I learn it, things will end. And I was postponing learning that lesson consciously for as long as I could. But one day I said to myself, I'm ready. I'm ready to detach. I've learned this. What is meant to be will be. If that person was in my life just for that lesson, we are going to go our own separate ways. If there are more lessons to learn, we will be together. But I wasn't able to betray myself anymore. I also felt betrayed by that person. And that was the hardest part to forgive. However, I'm a single parent. So afterwards, I had to be focused at home. I couldn't grieve fully. It is a grieving process, a betrayal. You're grieving a picture that you have of your future with that person. I couldn't grieve that moment, but I said to myself that I will not be distracting myself. I'll take it one step at a time and fully grieve and fully forgive myself first for staying. For a few months, I was journaling and grieving, and I felt better, but I needed to be solo. So, what did I do? Typical Sagittarius. I signed up for a course on mindfulness, and I really love the teacher. And every time I ask her, are you doing a retreat? I really want to come. And she was going to do a retreat in September, mid September, I think 2 years ago. I received this email from her that she's doing a retreat. And I look at the date, a few days after the first day of the school year. I said, where's the payment link? Send it to me. I don't know how I'll make it, but I'll make it. So I signed up for the retreat. I had to be in Europe before that because the retreat was in Tuscany, in Italy. I'll not bore you with the details, but I decided to embark before that on a 10 days solo trip. And I went to Budapest, where I have a friend. Athens, I always wanted to go, and I thought it's perfect time, September. And Pisa, one of my favorite cities in Italy. I love Pisa. There's something about Pisa that I love. And I wanted to share the lessons that I learned. I embarked on that journey more of a eat, pray, love journey. And I knew there are other lessons I needed to learn. And I wanted to be off my phone, off the beaten path, sit in coffee shops for 4 hours without my son getting bored and stressing out. I wanted to walk for 10 hours a day without him getting tired and complaining. I wanted to honor what I was feeling. And I booked Airbnbs that had balconies where I could reflect and be with myself, have a good cry, scream if I have to. And I was sure that some days I would not want to be around people, especially in tourist places. Most people are couples and families. I knew I would feel the hit, but I wanted to heal. I traveled into that messy middle, the in between shading of old selves, where we outgrew our old self, but we still found, still the new self hasn't emerged. And that place is so uncomfortable. And a lot of us go through that, most of us. And if we don't go through those messy middles, it means one thing only. We're not stepping outside of our comfort zone. We're not trying new things and we're not growing. And I knew that I have to do things differently this time around. I knew I have to go through the bullseye, like the storm, to the storm's eye, and be in the raw, that terrifying between who I was and who I was becoming space. And what I found changed me forever. I'll share a few lessons. In Budapest, I've learned how to interrupt my overthinking. I'm a big overthinker. This is a childhood programming, it's from traumas in the past. And I want to find the solutions to every problem. I overthink little things and overlook gigantic things. I let go of a lot of things. I do not sweat the small stuff in life. I'm such a life loving person. I do not like to be put in a box, and I don't like putting people in a box. That's how I raised my son. He can be whoever he wants to be, whatever gives him joy, whatever he's good at. I rarely give him advice. I let people be who they want to be. Some people are uncomfortable with that because they are, or they don't trust that because they're so used to being with a person who tells them what to do, and society in general putting us into these boxes and norms. And I was always a rebel and I always like to live outside those boxes. In Budapest, I learned to let beauty interrupt my overthinking. I would constantly be in my head about what happened that night, about what he said, what I said. Should I have said something else? What he could have said, and all these scenarios in my head. When I got to Budapest, I promised myself one thing: 16 days, including the retreat. There will be challenges. There will be beautiful moments. There will be moments out of my comfort zone because I knew it's going to be challenging. I knew it's going to be very different. And I knew for certainty that by the end, when I land in New York, I'll be a different person. One of the hardest things with healing and growing is when I peel these onion layers, would I like what I see inside? And that is a big fear, that we might not like to see who we are inside. And that's how a lot of times we don't start our journey or we feel lost. Who am I now that I stepped out of this on? But who am I? I don't know. And that is a terrifying place. that messy middle in between. The new self hasn't emerged yet. How am I going to find out who I am? A lot of times we retract, but this time I'm finding out who I am by testing, jumping from an airplane without a parachute, letting life teach you. That is when you find who you are. For me, that was traveling solo. I said, you know what? I'm going to make the best out of these 16 days. I spent a lot of money, time. I'm going to learn the lessons I need and live days fully present. In Budapest, I booked few group trips instead of being isolated and just soaking what the teacher was saying. I met so many interesting people. Nighttime downstairs was this bar and restaurant, and I'll sit downstairs and I met so many guys who were flirting and talking. It was so refreshing. In the past, I travel a lot. This year, I went to Cuba, Mexico City, London, Istanbul. I was always with my son or my mom or both of them and a friend. And then you don't talk to other people because you have these people around. But this was the first time I spoke to a lot of new people, and it was just amazing. And slowly I realized less and less I think about this person. But I still was not ready for the lessons. I still didn't see the lessons. In Athens, I decided to just do what the locals do, what Athenians do. And this is very similar than what Bulgarians do. We sit for hours in a coffee shop staring into blank space, people watching. I did a lot of that. I did a lot of crying. There were nights that I just didn't want to go where tourists are because I knew I would be triggered. But I wanted to honor that as well, but also push myself into that space and let whatever arises arise. I knew I could always call my mom or I could call a friend in Bulgaria because it's the same time. I did that and it was fine. I loved watching couples and families, and I was happy. I see love everywhere. And it's so much about perspective, which I'm going to talk about in Pisa. But it's so much about perspective. Instead of seeing it as, oh my gosh, poor me, I don't have anyone to go on vacation with. I chose to go alone. But I could have sit there and victimize myself and say, look at these people, they all have someone, and I'm here sitting alone and have a pity party. And that happened one night. But that night, I said to myself, this is beautiful. There's so much love in the world. And I know my person was not that person. Because when it's your person, it's two people choosing each other. They don't play games. Everything is open. There's no push and pull, no cover up, one person deciding for both of us. It's open, it's honest, it's direct. You know it when that's your person. You don't have the anxiety, questions, you don't have the doubts. And so in that moment, I was so grateful that I'm around this space where there's so many families and couples and people. A lot of people seem genuinely happy because sometimes, many times, that's not the case with couples. I was sitting there and I was so much with inner peace. And I knew I'm on my way of healing from that breakup. My person is out there and I'm growing through this experience. In Athens, sitting for hours in coffee shops, I could finally hear my thoughts that I was drowning them for years. And I promised my son, because my son is someone very grounded. He's very into the moment. He's a teenager, he's 16. But traveling with him, he doesn't even take his phone out of the hotel room. He's not on his phone. He's always critical of me why I take so many photos, but I say, you know what? I have one life. I want to take photos of where I've been when I'm 90. Look how beautiful I was. I want you to have the photos to show my grandkids. And have your memories too. He says, okay, I understand, but do 10, 15 photos. You do 200. So I said, this time I promise I'm not going to take as many. I'm not going to post as many. I'll be in the moment. Sit with myself. This is my task for this journey. I'm so proud of myself. The whole trip, maybe 300 photos. Okay, let's say five. I think there were five. But that's 16 days. I usually take that in a day. So I was so proud of myself. And the next town was very instrumental. Pisa. I get emotional when I talk about Italy. I love Italy. I get emotional because it was really transformational. I booked a room in a house with an older lady. She was a painter and she was giving the rooms. When I went there, I felt pulled to be in that space and not to rent something on my own. I rented that room. It was very nice, very cute. She was so interesting. When I was checking in, we were talking, and my name is Italian, Lucia. My dad is Romanian. I'm half Romanian. So the name is Italian Romanian because Italian and Romanian, they come from the same tribe. I don't know if that's the English name. And so my name is Italian. So she was telling me what my name means. It means light, but she was telling me it's light in my eyes. And we were talking, and I just felt I had a friend there and that I was not alone, that we're never alone. And I don't know why, in that moment, I realized how happy I was alone, how content I was alone, that inner peace that I can be anywhere. It doesn't matter the zip code. I just love myself. I feel good with myself. I feel good where I am. And a little off topic, but it's related. Years ago, I was debating moving back to Europe, and I met monk Krishna. I don't know if they're called monks, but I think they're called monks. And I went to see him. He happened to be Bulgarian, and we would chat. And then every Tuesday I would go. They had lunch in the temple, and we would just talk. And one time I asked him, I'm debating moving back to Europe. I don't feel good anymore here, although it was dream of mine forever to come to New York, and I forever blessed and grateful. And I asked him, how would I know where to go and if I should go? Because my it's fourth grade. That's a big change. So he said, when you find the home within yourself, you will know. And in that moment in Pisa, I realized I feel amazing no matter where I am, no matter who I am with. If I'm dating, if I'm not dating, if I'm with my family, if I'm not with my family, I feel equally at peace. And for me, I always understand happiness and I always chase that as being content. I never looked to be happy because my mom is a Buddhist, and I know from her, when you are very happy, you're right here, then you are there. It's this amplitude. The goal is to be in the middle, which is very hard, or have at least a little waves. So, not a lot of happiness when things go your way and you achieve things, and not because the more you go up, the harder you land, the deeper, the harder. And so, I always wanted to be content with who I am, be content with whatever life gives me. And I practice that religiously through gratitude, and it's working. But in that moment, I knew that I'm happy and content. And I cannot describe this feeling. I thought I'll be devastated alone after a breakup, my son in New York, my family back in Bulgaria. I went years ago in Pisa with my son, and I didn't climb the tower. I was scared, and I thought the tower will collapse. But I'm kidding. I was scared. I'm scared of heights. But also, there was a lot of people in the afternoon, and it was too hot. And he was 9 at that time. He was really tired. So I didn't want to force that experience. We travel to have fun, not just to soak absolutely everything, be miserable. There's always a second time. So this time I said to myself, you know what? I'm buying ticket for everything and I'm gonna go to everything. Pisa is very small and you can walk around in a matter of minutes. I was there for 3 days, nothing to do. I was just waiting for the retreat. So I had a lot of time. And I climbed up the tower and it was the most unpleasant experience because the tower is lean, is tilted. Of course, you know that. And the stairs are dented on whichever side the tower leans on. And it was so disbalancing. And I have already fear of heights. And it was just not a good experience. But when I went up there, I looked and there was this huge building and it seemed tilted. And I said to the woman, oh my gosh, look at this building is tilted. Is it me or it's tilted? And then she, yeah, because we are on a tilted tower. And then, of course, ta-da, it dawned on me that everything in life, it's a perspective. Life, it's not what it is, it's who we are. I'm butchering that quote, but I know people say this and we read it everywhere that we see life not as what it is, but as who we are. And that moment in the tower, my perspective was tilted, hence everything around. And so in life, through our traumas and programmings, everything has different perspective. And at that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, me and that person, we had completely different perspectives. We came from completely different vantage points. So no wonder we see things differently because we are completely different people with completely different life experiences. So there was no room for judgment from my side or hopefully from his side, but from anyone's side towards the other person because we see it through our perspective and makes sense through the life that he had and his experiences and his baggage, and it made sense to my experience, my traumas, my baggage. And there was no right and wrong. And at that moment, I felt this forgiveness to myself for holding on to stories, forgiveness to him. And there was no betrayal, there was nothing. There was just this indifference in a way that it was what it was. It was a chapter, it was a lesson, and that was my lesson. That was my greatest lesson. And although I knew it before, but it just solidified back in my body that we are all humans, that at one point we forgot who we are. And there are moments in our lives, like this one, like breakups, that awake us. And we have a chance to be on this fork on the road or to get bitter and play the victim or to look for the lesson, look within. And it was extremely healing because there was no one to blame. It was something that we both had to experience. I've learned a lot of lessons and I've changed so much after that experience, after the breakup, mainly because I stopped betraying myself. I've learned to say no and not explain myself. I walked away in silence. I did not let myself down. I stood by myself, and my self worth skyrocketed after this experience. But there was a lot of suffering, and suffering is when we don't accept the pain. But how do you accept the pain? To sit still, go through that bullseye, through all emotions so you can accept it. And in that moment, being up there in the tower, I was not even afraid of the heights anymore. I was just looking at everything through that tilted perspective. And I was just shocked how peaceful I felt. I knew that my life will be different from that moment on. I was washed out with this gratitude for this person. If he was there, I would have probably given him a hug and wished him well. It was so much letting go that I knew that this was just a chapter. It was never meant to be a book. And it was beautiful because I knew I'm not holding on anymore to something that it would have never worked. It was meant to be a chapter. And I knew at that moment that I'm a completely different person. Different side of me was there. And the strength that I had for a second time to walk away in silence, to say no without over explaining, to stand by my side and not betray myself and not let any more myself down because I deeply love and respect myself. I was a different person. My self-worth, my self-confidence, my self-esteem, everything went through this other level and that feeling of contentment. And I just at that moment deeply and truly forgave myself for holding on to these stories that I've been feeding myself. I forgave that person because I knew we're on our separate journey to learn these lessons. And sometimes we learn lessons on our own. We learn lessons on our own and then we come back together. And that's what happened. But this time around, I knew and I know that there's no going back for me, at least, because I've learned the lessons and I'm in so much peace with that closed chapter or a book. It was a short book, but changed me deeply. And I wish that for you too. I'm sharing this, and it's a long winded video to share that sometimes we really have to travel the world, literally and metaphorically, go through the bull's eye, sit with ourselves, sit with that discomfort, and learn those lessons. It's very difficult, but that's what makes us strong. And having that resilience, that inner strength, it's priceless. And having that peace inside, knowing that I'll be okay. I don't like giving advices. That's why my videos always change shape because I like to share lessons, but I don't like giving advices to people because I always believe like with the right questions, you will find the answers. That's why there are journaling prompts always in the end of my videos. I would just say this: if you are standing in your own messy middle after a breakup, in a transition, or just unsure who you are, where you are, don't rush it. Don't run. Stay. Because the light only comes through the cracks. Those moments we think break us. It feels like breaking. My heart felt shattered. Although I walked away from what did not serve me, it still was painful. In these moments, we think they break us. They break peace from our old selves. They shatter our old selves. And sometimes we try to piece these pieces back together, but it's not working because this is an old self that is meant to be behind. We're supposed to let the pieces go. But sometimes There are pieces that stay and new pieces come into their place. And what do we do with these new pieces? We put them together like a ikigai, this Japanese art. And sometimes these pieces don't fully fit in. And through those cracks, when we see a light. But if we didn't have that crack, we would not see the light. So those moments are pivotal for our growth. And I'm excited for what's to come. As of now, I know one thing: everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to happen at the exact moment that is supposed to happen. And I have deep gratitude for what had happened, for all the people that were in my life contributing to that growth. And those are the people that hurt me the most. And the people that we love the most, they hurt us the most. They hurt us the most because we love them the most. And I truly loved this person and I had deep love for him. And I would quote Seneca because he's one of my favorite philosophers. If you love something, let it go. If it comes back, it's yours forever. So this is for today's video. If it resonated with you, great. If it didn't, too bad. I'm kidding. Here's a journaling prompt. Where in my life am I waiting for clarity instead of stepping into it? Mantra. The messy middle isn't where I lose myself, it's where I finally meet myself. And that was my messy middle diary, sharing my eat, pray, love journey. See you next time. Ciao.